AchtungMillwall supports the Lions Food Hub, and all of our advertising revenues will be donated to support this fantastic initiative. It's now based at the Lions Centre on Bolina Road, and it's run by our own Kelly Webster. This is a friendly food bank supporting families in the Bermondsey and SE16 area. If you can help support the Lions Food Hub in any way, please visit at Lions Food Hub on Twitter or get in touch with us at AchtungMillwall. The Lions Food Hub. Come on, you Lions.
You're listening to AchtungMillwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Bermondsey. Accept no substitute.
Well, hello, dear listeners. Welcome to a quick fire edition of Achtung Millwall in the wake of yesterday's transfer window. I hesitate to call it drama at the den, but anyway, yesterday's transfer window. Joining me in this edition is the boy himself. London football scene, it's called, Ryan. I never get this right, do I?
At the moment, you can just call me freelance. I'll
freelance. Are you free, Lance? Welcome to freelance. Ryan Loftus, welcome to the show, mate.
Good afternoon. How are we all doing?
We're doing fine. Also online is the 72 Plus podcast host, Mr. Radio 5 Live himself. It's Aaron Paul. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
All right, Nick. All right, mate. How's it going?
So we speak in the wake of yesterday's transfer window, dear listeners. Chaps, I mean, some of it was expected, kind of in the case of Marlon Romeo leaving the den, and some was unexpected. I mean, the only incoming name is the Sheyi Ojo, and that was a name I didn't expect at all. It wrong-footed me slightly. I mean, Ryan or Aaron, I mean, do you know anything of Sheyi Ojo? I mean, how good a player is he? Is he prospect?
I watched him at Fulham a few seasons ago. He went into Fulham on loan in 2017. He seems like one of these players who just sort of perennially goes on loan. He comes through the Liverpool Academy. He's played a few games for them, but 24 years of age, it's loan. He was at Cardiff last year. I think got a few goals from 4 or 5 goals from last season, but just I don't know. I mean, it was needed, but is he coming into play as a wing back? Like,
it's a question.
I'm not sure. I was going to say, Nick, I think the way you introed the pod was very generous. I was going to say this pod is to cushion the disappointment of the transfer window, because I think there is an element of disappointment, isn't there, around the business that the club have done this year.
I don't know.
Still it's kind of the same old. It's basically. Do you know what it is? I'll give you the analogy. This is the transfer window for Millwall this season. Is you're outside, you're walking down the strip in like Ibiza or Magaluf or Marbella, wherever you are, and some club promoter comes up to you, oh my God, amazing atmosphere in there, it's great, bam, 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 yeah, amazing, free drink here, there's fucking whatever there is inside, it's great.
There's black ladies doing Superman in there instead.
Yeah, basically, and it's just like, right, we've been told a bit of a dream here. John Daddy Bodvarson's still there, I don't know. No. Bodvarson's still there. Bradshaw's still there. Jed Wallace is still there, which is a good sign.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Always a good thing. But again, like, I think it's just a little bit light in key areas. Like, where you see other clubs sort of doing more shrewd business. Millwall seem to go down a certain route, and they've gone down that route, and they've brought in, 6 players? 3 permanents, 3 on loan. One of them's a backup keeper. It's a bit underwhelming. It's a little bit underwhelming. What that is, if it's Gary Rowett, if it's the board, no one knows. Let's just hope that there will be some free transfer action going on. I'm really kind of hanging my hope on that.
Ryan, have you ever been caught in that club that Aaron's described there, where you find black lace when you were sold? I'm trying to think of a hit band, listeners. The only one I can think of is it Corncraft, that do a kind of like a clubby kind of stuff. Have you ever been in that club? Right,
I'm as you know by now, I'm far too cynical to be drawn in by all of that in the first place. So I say firmly walking up and down the strip, and probably an early night in bed for me. No, I have to agree with Aaron. It's a very odd one this year, because our the transfer business, if you've asked before the season kicked off, you go, we've actually done really well. You know, Afobe, Saville and Ballard were some really good signings and everyone was very, very positive about them. And then it's just how the season's played out, the first 5 games. Obviously, you don't want to be panicking too early, but the first 5 games really highlight issues that Millwall have that I think we've all known about and maybe we're kidding ourselves a bit about. You know, when we're struggling to break teams down, obviously the losses and the draws we had, you just expect more from the bench. Especially you turn around at the bench and, you know, bringing on George Evans as your late attacking substitute as you go for a winner isn't that inspiring. And now Matt Smith's got a starting place. We'll see if that continues, but if he's starting, then we are really lacking on the bench. And there's just key areas, and yeah, like Aaron says, it is underwhelming. I think it's a real highlight of where Millwall are at the moment. I think this is probably the biggest insight into how we are doing financially. I think COVID has hit everyone hard, but it's looking like, you know, whether this is just poor recruitment or literally having your hands tied by a lack of finances, that we couldn't really do more business because of an inability to shift. You know, the names that Aaron said earlier, there's plenty of players. I even wonder if, you know, the likes of Alex Pearson and Matt Smith were kept on because maybe they were told, or Rowett was told, you know, we probably won't be able to afford to replace them. So
yeah, they're done the cheap.
Yeah, keep them around. I reckon, you know, if they both agreed reduced fees slightly, probably better than having to stretch and get someone who's maybe a bit more exciting. But yeah, it's where we're at the moment. It's concerning.
I don't understand. I mean, my logic may be sort of fuzzy and I might be a bit stupid sometimes. But why was Marlon Romero allowed to leave when Danny McNamara is injured?
I'll have a go at answering that one, Ryan. I mean, I'm trying to think the most diplomatic ways that I can.
He wanted to go.
He wanted to go. Yeah. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. And there are many, many reasons that lie behind that. You could argue on both sides because although players don't become bad overnight, he certainly hasn't been playing to his the potential that we saw a few years ago. I find his departure quite sad, if I'm going to be honest, because he is a good player. He has been a good player for Millwall, both in League One and then in the Championship. He's probably at that level as a player. I mean, you can always pick fault in anyone's game, and I mean, I've seen online today, the quality of the crossing, but he's not the only player that we've had that has struggled to beat the first man with his crossing. But for me, he's been one of our better players in the last 5 to 6 years. I think it was 2015 he made his debut. I mean, Ryan, I think the departure of Marlon Romeo without, any obvious replacement. Danny Mack is injured. And, we'll be playing Billy Mitchell or Ryan Leonard out there, I guess, in his absence.
Yeah.
It is both sad. It is, for me, the product of things that are stupid, if I'm going to be really blunt, because there was no need for Marlon Romeo, and the issues that lie behind that have been debated 1,000 times online. But I don't know, it leaves the club lighter and weaker and thinner, the squad thinner.
I think that I'd have to disagree with you when you started. Then we're saying it's many, many reasons. Realistically, I think it is mainly one reason. Obviously, the idea of him maybe losing his place, and he's never really been truly loved or embraced by the Millwall fans. But I think we've all seen over the last less than 12 months really for him that it's almost become an untenable place for him from a personal perspective. I'm sure to stay at Millwall, and it's hard. There will be people who say that if a player says, they want to leave, it's a bit like the Fred saying, I want to leave, I'm not going to play. Then, we should not give them the courtesy of letting them leave, stick them in the reserves and kind of let them rot sort of thing. But like you say, I think the club realised that Marlon's an asset, and, if he goes out and has a successful loan, we can still get a bit of money for him. I highly, highly doubt we'll ever see him play for Millwall again.
I don't think so. No, not now.
But a loan is probably a better option than having sold him now for a very low wage, or for a very low fee, at least. So it has left us in the lurch massively.
It has. I mean, I was interested to see, is it Danny Cowley, Aaron, who's the manager at Portsmouth?
Pompey? Yeah.
So Danny Cowley's comments to one of the papers, I can't remember for the life of me which one it is. It might have been London News Online, but it might have been News at Den. He made the point that Millwall have been flexible and have kind of made the deal happen. It comes back to what you're saying there, Ryan, that there, the reasons he's left may be in some eyes, justifiable or not in some people's eyes. But we've actually made a player that should hold value. We've bent over backwards to arrange a deal that sounds like we're helping Pompey out slightly in terms of the finance of it. I guess I don't know, but certainly if we've bent over backwards to make that deal happen, it seems a bit arse about face, to borrow an old phrase my old mum used to use. Seems a bit arse about face when we should be getting value for him.
Yeah.
But there we are. He's gone, and I think, as you say, Ron, he ain't going to come back. So that may make some people quite happy about that. Don't me.
You know what, Nick? I think what's disappointing for me is the fact that Tyler Bury and Isaac Alafa are both allowed to sort of leave on loan as well.
Yeah.
I just think that sort of the folly of youth could be a good little injection of just a bit of excitement,
a bit of buzz,
stability, into what is a squad that is evidently kind of just not dragging along, but dragging along.
I'd say, and I don't know what you think about this, Ron. I mean, we said at the start of the show how the signings over the summer injected some excitement, some buzz. I mean, it's not 3 or 4 weeks since Harry was, speaking highly positively. So, and it reflects a certain buzz that was in the air at the Den. That seems to have gone out the window now.
I think that's because everyone expected more to be done.
Yeah. Well, even just, I think a stronger start would have made people happier as well. But as soon as the games, don't really work out, and it's like I said before, where when you look at the bench, there's just nothing. And Rowett seems to quite clearly have his favourites who play.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
It's why the Sheyi Ojo transfer does surprise me a bit. If I'm Conor Mahoney now, I'm asking to leave. I'm going in January, or at least in the summer. I want you to sell me as fast as you possibly can, because he's not. Even under Harris, he struggled a bit, but he's not had a run in the side. I don't think he's played more than 4 games or started more than 4 games in a row since signing. And I know he's been slightly wishy-washy, but that's also down a bit to injuries. And he's just never been given faith. I mean, so little faith that Rowett has adopted a system that doesn't have wingers in it, in the 5-3-2. I know he played a slightly different one against Blackpool, but it's the 5-3-2 that we've been playing for the longest time at the moment. And he has so little faith in him that he can't get in the team. He's been playing at wing back, maybe a run in the cup every now and then all of a sudden you get someone else in on loan who plays in his position. And that speaks to me about the faith that Rowett has in certain players, and whether or not he's right or wrong about that. I mean, we don't see them every day, and we barely see him on the pitch anyway, so it's hard to be a judge. But it looks like it's, from what looked like a very smart transfer window from the start, it's ended in something that seems a bit of a shambles.
Mate, for me, it was the expectation. The buzz around the club was clear up. There's going to be this sort of mass exodus, and we're going to get rid of all the shit. Let's be fair. They got rid of Shane Ferguson, someone who I would have kept. I think he was just, he's a really solid squad player. Sean Williams left, Frank Fielding, and then you see George Alexander and James Brown. That's not a clear up. There is no clear up. Frank Fielding, 1 game in 2 years, and he got stretched off after half an hour or something like that. There was no clear up. Was it a case of simply people didn't want to buy it? Was this the car boot store where everything that's not sold at the end of the day is put in the bin? What is it? I'm trying to understand.
People didn't want to buy the players. I think Rowett was pretty clear the whole time about we need more players, which is also, something, again, he was quite actively saying we need to depth, we need to have some different options. And we couldn't, but he was quite clear saying we need to sell some players first. We need to get some players off the books. And I mean, what team would take John Daddy Vodvarsson based on his last season? He's probably not going to be anywhere close to earning what he's earning now. Tom Bradshaw as well. I don't see even a League One side not fancying taking him. I think it's so hard to move players on unless you have a very, very smart sort of team doing that. I mean, Chelsea, who have Marino Granovskaya doing that for them and had a really good year of it this year, they've struggled in the last couple of years to move players on. And even they didn't manage to move on everyone they wanted to. And they've got, decent players, whereas try selling on shit. And it's where Millwall are. And I think that's what I mean earlier about it showing us where our finances are, that it is very much maybe like that club in Ibiza. Maybe it is that one in, one out policy.
That's why I did ask about, the other week, and I know a lot of people, it rumbled up a debate on social media. Sorry, guys, but, I had to ask the question. What is the ambition for John Berylson? From what I understand, he's putting in £9-10 million of his own money a year into the club. What is he getting out of it? How is he planning to make a return out of this? And how is he trying to make the club sustainable? What's he trying to do? Because effectively, it's this sort of endless cycle of optimism, and then
mediocrity.
Yes,
would be the word I would
yes.
use, because it's been a very mediocre start to the season.
Everyone talks about how it's a fantastic Mill squad, and I was reading previews from these EFL pundits saying that Mill squad's great. If they don't get top 10, then it's a failure, and it's great. I don't think that squad's great. On paper, it doesn't look great. You've got some quality in there, granted, in the likes of Cooper and Scott Malone's a fantastic fullback, and of course Jeb Wallace will fish you out of trouble. But that's not a squad that can challenge for the playoffs when you've got other teams who have, let's be fair, an embarrassment of riches in their armory. It's not great, Nick.
I mean, we'll never compete with the big boys of the Championship, the financial big boys I'm talking about. We just can't. But what you can do, and you've spoken a few times, Aaron, about Luton Town, and there will be other, and I've seen some good results and some bad results for Luton this season. So let's not elevate them too far too quickly. But they're building something. They have a style that they seem to want to work towards. And I'm not sure that Gary Rowett knows what style I think he knows what style he wants, but he doesn't have the players. I'm not sure he's got the support at the Den, particularly, to play it.
My question is, Nick, is he building a system? Is there a structure going in place? Are we looking at someone who's trying to build a recruitment model? What are we doing? That's my question. Yeah. Again, I'm going to question it again. What are we doing? Is there a recruitment model going in place? Is someone going to try and, maybe put in a recruitment structure? Are they going to go for a certain type of player? You see clubs, they go for certain types of players. Dara at Peterborough, he goes for players that he knows that they can coach and they can build and they can sell on. Brentford go for a certain type of player. Fulham go for a ready-made type of player or based off data. Everyone does different things, but what are we doing? What are Millwall going to do now? Because it's another transfer window which I feel has been wasted to an extent, and
I mean
we're going to sit here in January praying for signings. To be honest, if I was Gary Rowett, I'd be sat going, mate, who are the free agents and who can we pick up?
Achtung, Millwall.
Jack Wilshere's without a club. Mate, Jack Wilshere would change the atmosphere in that ground. Flip it on its head. Am I not?
I think signing Jack Wilshere would make the atmosphere much worse, personally. But
really?
I don't like Jack Wilshere.
Why?
Because I don't think he's very good.
Nick?
And I don't think he has I think the reason he's not with a club right now is because of personality issues behind the scene rather than anything to do with on the pitch.
Fine. Ahmed El Mohammadi would change the atmosphere.
Would you think? The problem is, I think I completely agree with what you're saying about the profile of player you're signing as well, Aaron, though, because we have no saleable assets in the squad at all. I think if you look from every single player in our squad, our one saleable asset is now 10 months away from leaving for free.
Yeah.
And there is literally no one else in that squad who, maybe Jake Cooper is.
Jake, if he gets his head together.
He's not started the season fantastically, but the older he gets, the less valuable he gets, which is, potentially maybe for a centre back, he holds on to his value for a bit more. But beyond that, we have literally no one in the squad. Danny Mack is potentially going to be one, but I can't see him being a a world beater. He'll be a very good Millwall player, but I can't see him necessarily going all the way to the top levels of the game. So it's at the moment we really do just seem to be scrambling around and pulling pieces together, And for a time that worked, sticking plasters on. I think signing George Evans was a good signing when we had the chance. I know you were a fan of Keith Bell before, Aaron, and it was a good signing when we had the chance. But sticking plasters on holes in a squad, eventually you run out of skin to cover, and it falls apart.
I think what struck me with the season so far, we have played 5 games. I keep getting my numbers wrong, listeners. We've played 5 games, and we have been in matches for very short periods of time when we've maybe played a more open style than Gary Rowett lined us up to begin with. There was the manic start at QPR back on opening day, where all kind of shackles are thrown off, and it was hell for leather, which wasn't sustainable as we saw then, but it certainly was exciting to watch. And I think what's disappointed me rather is that we seem to be allowing our most exciting prospects, and you've mentioned Tyler Bury, Aaron, and I'm just looking at Isaac Alofa going to Sutton, and the other end of the pitch, Alex Mitchell's gone off to Leyton Orient on loan, both for developmental reasons, and that's a good thing. But these are exciting young players. Now, if you field exciting young players mixed with some old salts and some old sweats to kind of pull them along, then there's a plan, there's a Millwall structure, one that we can all relate to, because that's kind of the club that we have been historically. And at our most exciting periods in our history, that's kind of what we've put together, young talent mixed with older hands. But you can see some direction. I'm just rather concerned since the start of the season that we look a little bit like we're floundering. And, Gary Rowett's approach has been to take I don't know what you would call it, a kind of a defensive stance mostly. And that's gone out the window because the defence has not looked on point. We've gone to 4-4-2 on occasions. I wonder whether 4-4-2 is going to be the way he goes, with Sheyi Ojo coming in, a winger, described as such. And I haven't seen enough of him to really know what he's about, but he's described as a winger with some good experience, boys. I mean, he's played abroad, he's played in France, he's played, Rangers in Scotland. And in the Premier League, it's not like he's without experience. But I would have thought, and maybe you two can correct me, that you'd probably stick him on the wing and tell him to get down and attack like a traditional winger would do. And that's where Jed's looked at his best this season. And, I just get a sense that Gary Rowett is trying to knock round pegs into square holes to suit a plan that he believes to be the modern style. I'm not sure.
Is he treading water?
We are treading water, but the club
is Gary Rowett treading water.
I would. That's a hard question to answer, because a couple of times on the shows, people have asked. His tactical nous and judgment seems to have deteriorated with the departure of Callum Davidson up to St Johnstone, who interestingly are doing quite well in the Scottish.
Very well.
And have played. Is it the Conference League they're in, or is it?
Yeah, they're out now. They got knocked out.
Okay,
but
but still, even in those 2 games, they drew away in Turkey and Lask as well. So,
but still doing well. I mean, they're playing Perth in Scotland, the far-flung parts of Perth, so they're doing well by Perth standards. Let's put it that way. Now, I don't know. I don't know Gary Rowett, and I don't know Callum Davidson, and I'm not in a position to judge. But what I do know is what I've seen on my follow last year, and now in the games we've seen at the Den, and it's just. It's miserable, and I think there's so much potential with the kind of buzz of the crowd and the signings we've made, and it seems to me that was it Harry said we're trying to drive a car with a handbrake on, and I just wonder whether there's Gary Rowett's tactical nous is now in question, which he won't like to hear, I'm sure, but that's my take.
It's hard because I mean there definitely has been a shift. I mean, like whether or not it is down to Davidson leaving or whatever's might have happened, or whether or not anything happened at all. But when Rowett came in, and you do get that bounce and you get that kind of new ideas, the 5-2-3 with that front three, it's Bradshaw and Wallace, and then Bennett came in. It was working fantastically well. The away wins, we're just struggling at home a bit, but now when it's slightly shifted, I mean, it's so defensive. And I don't know. I mean, you've been watching Millwall a lot longer than me, Nick, or slightly longer than me. Have you ever seen too many managers completely change the atmosphere? I mean, it is. I feel like the atmosphere and the crowd support is starting to wane.
There was certainly comment around me. I was in Block 1 last week against Blackpool, and you'd have to be a deaf person not to hear the comments. I mean, it's not at Holloway levels yet, but it won't be far short of it if it continues to be.
Do you reckon? Do you reckon we're on our way, sort of that way?
Well, I mean, I can only go by the feel of the crowd. I mean, and there was, I was trying to find the right words for it. There was sharp comment. Let's put a sharp comment about what people were seeing against Blackpool, mostly because Blackpool were down to 10 men and managed to get themselves in front with as they were playing for. They'd come to park the bus, and they parked 2 buses once they went down to 10, and then they hit us on the break, which you could kind of see coming. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Ryan. I mean, I felt that as soon as I said, I don't claim to be any kind of football judge, but I said in real time, surely now's the moment for Conor Mahoney to come in with a man advantage. And
and that's what I mean. I think with that game's a prime example. I think where I know a lot of people would have said it, where we kept 5 at the back for 65 minutes.
We did.
And I think at the moment the substitutions happen late. I know it's kind of a feature of Rowett, but the substitutions do happen late, and I don't know if that is a choice of his, where he thinks they have a bit more impact when they come on late. Obviously, Matt Smith has done well off the bench, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Or is it just a matter of turning around and kind of going, what can I do? It's hard, and that's where I think Mahoney missed out on a squad a couple of weeks ago because of what Rowett deemed as performance issues in training. I just feel like he doesn't fancy quite a lot of the players. I think the fact that Tom Bradshaw barely got a game, even Bodvarsson last season was constantly picked ahead of Bradshaw. I don't have the stats to hand, but I imagine Bradshaw got hardly any starts and quite a few off the bench. And he just never got a start, where for everyone was going, why are we persisting with Bodvarsson, who now isn't anywhere near the squad, whereas Bradshaw's still on the bench but can't come off or can't come on the pitch. So there are clearly 4 or 5 players maybe who Rowett doesn't seem to fancy. I'm not 100% sure if he fancies Billy Mitchell at the moment. Because I know he likes Kiefenbeld. I know Kiefenbeld has been putting in a lot of tackles, but I'm really not very impressed with him. I think he's a bit like a midfield Matt Smith, where he's really good at one thing, but then limits you with everything else you want to do. He can, and even his tackling let us down for that Blackpool goal. So, would the fans just be slightly more on side if Billy Mitchell's in the midfield doing a bit of running? I know now he's probably going to be at right back, but there's an odd sort of vibe with some of the squad and some people who you think might be playing, but like you say, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We don't know. You have to assume Gary Rowett has a lot more knowledge than us about football, but it's an odd one still.
It would be nice to see it. It would be nice to see it. I mean, because if I'm sitting there in Block 1 by all the shit, and I'm saying, surely now we make a change at 20 minutes or even at half time if you want to be generous. If I'm saying that, and I've never worked in the football industry, then you'd have thought that he would be thinking it. And if he's not thinking it, why isn't he thinking it? Because the game was there to be taken. Blackpool were honest opponents, and they certainly made the most of what they had. But I didn't see, the next level of football artistry from them. So why is he not thinking it? The thing that strikes me, boys, is when Gary Rowett first arrived, when in the aftermath of Neil Harris stepping down, and Neil, I think, had reached the end of his particular road, and the style was being seen as very predictable that we were playing. Everyone knew what to expect from Millwall. Gary Rowett's initial period saw what I can't remember how he described it, but he said something on the club video channel about he's got 1 or 2 changes he wants to make in the way that the players approached the each game. And we saw that odd period where Jake was given license to get forwards, and just very small changes. The players just took a touch. They passed the ball rather than hoofed it. And I thought, well, this is refreshing. This is a change. It was Millwall, but it was played with a little bit more nous and a little bit more subtlety. And we built up to that. Probably his high point, Ryan, I think, was the away win at Forest. And ever since then, it's by steps downwards, it's been getting less and less interesting to watch. And towards the end of the season, I mean, I was forcing myself to watch it just purely because I set myself up to do a podcast. I thought I've got to see the thing, and culminating in those thumpings we saw in late April. And there's something going. I believe players are intuitive. They know when the manager isn't what he's cracked up to be. They know when he's faking it, and I think that there's a sense that this bloke in charge doesn't make the changes that the bloke in block one can see up there. And I think there may be a bit of that about.
Yeah, you get a bit of the vibe of late era Neil Harris, who's afraid to lose, where we always be playing for the draw. I did have a bit of that feeling about me at Blackpool last weekend. Whether or not that's too harsh, but
do you think he's afraid to lose, or do you think he's kind of getting to a place where he doesn't care?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to say that about someone. I wouldn't want to hope that about manager. You know, that's it's hard. I don't know if it's about whether he doesn't want to lose, or because I don't think a number of draws. I mean, we had that run of 16 games with probably like 13 draws in, wasn't it, last season?
Yeah.
You know, so he clearly likes a draw. I mean, I don't know whether it's just a belief.
This is what we were getting when Millwall brought Gary Rowett in. This is what they were getting. They were getting a manager who's sort of, you know, like he's pragmatic. He's a B-Tech Mourinho, effectively, like that. You know, he's Mourinho, where, you know, he's the base model Tesla. He hasn't.
That's a great description. I like that. I'm going to nick that one, Aaron.
What, B-Tech Mourinho. Yeah. You know, that's what he is. You know, his teams have never been attacking. They've never looked to push. His first two signings at Derby were Curtis Davis and Tom Huddleston. That doesn't say, you know, a lot. Then I don't know what does. My question is now, you know, yes, he's beaten Blackpool and the pressure is somewhat relieved of him. You got West Brom away on September the 11th. That's going to be very
a tough away gig. I mean, certainly the pressure is building on Gary Rowett. I mean, I think that late header by Jake Cooper, who'd had a mare on Saturday against Blackpool, redeemed himself. If you know what I mean, he's pulled his side out of trouble by winning that late header, and that relieved the burden on Gary Rowett for the moment. I think if we start to take punishment like Fulham level punishment again, which we may well do at West Brom, Ryan, I mean, I think that it's going to get progressively tougher for him as September proceeds, because Neil Harris had some love. You know, he was Neil Harris.
Yeah.
Gary Rowett doesn't have that kind of love, and I don't like calling for anyone to be in trouble. It just doesn't sit right with me. I mean, that's not what when I was a union rep. You try and keep people in work, not get them out. But football is an industry of itself, and I can't see that pressure. I can only see that pressure building if we don't start to get results quickly.
Yeah, I mean, give it 3 weeks, Nick, and you'll be out with Harry with your Rowett out banners every week.
It's Rowett.
I would never do that. No,
Rowett out. Sorry, yeah. No, it's an odd one. I think, like you said, you don't want to necessarily see someone lose their job, and I don't necessarily know if that'd even be the right move for Millwall. You know, sometimes the devil knows worst, and
it will cost a lot of money, that's for sure. Because
that's true as well. If the club can't afford to bring anyone in, I wonder how bad it will be to bring someone out. But
I know obviously everyone's going to say, you know, negative. There is an element of that, but there's also an element of realism. You know, that we can't sit, and we can't sit with like rose mill tinted glasses, and I was going to say Ari's bar tinted glasses, HFP Ari's tinted glasses, and say, you know, that everything's great, the shit smells beautiful, because it doesn't. And
the league table does not lie, as the cliche says.
You know, points make prizes, and at the end of the day, Mill won't be winning any prizes when they're not picking up points. But then again, you know, it all comes back down to recruitment. I feel like I've been banging on about it for 2 years now. For 2 years, I've been crying for recruitment. Now, I mean, you know, I looked at Gareth Ainsworth at Wickham yesterday. He released 2 players, Alex Samuel and Scott Cashkett. And the fans, they understood, because he's turned around and gone, in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, there's going to be some players who are desperate for a contract, like freebies who are desperate for a contract, and I'll go and make my move then. Is Gary Rowett as shrewd an operator as Gareth Ainsworth to go and say, I'll go and get that? I don't know. Will he be doing it? I don't know.
I'm just looking at. I mean, Aaron's sent on our WhatsApp listeners a list of free transfers. I think they're players without contract, aren't they, Aaron? And you got some names. You got mentioned Wilshere, Jack Wilshere. There's Nathaniel Mendes, Lang, Daniel Sturridge knocking around out there. I mean, whether we can afford the wages, but then again, if it's 2 or 3 weeks' time they're not in work, then I suppose that would narrow your focus on wage expectations, rightly or wrongly. Wilfred Boney, you've got
Mate,
here.
I'll go for El Mohammadi. He plays
El
right back.
Mohammadi.
He can play midfield. He's always fit.
Robson Canu, Mo Bezic. You know, I mean, there's names in there. Whether that is his game, I don't know. I don't know.
You hope.
It remains to be seen. I mean, what I do see is that the players that the player that left us, Marlon, is the main name that's left us, gone on loan, probably forever gone now. Was seen at least by Pompey and apparently by others. Ipswich, I saw mentioned, was seen as a player of worth. The players that have stayed, if you discount Jed Wallace, who is in his own category, and we're very thankful for him remaining. But Ben Thompson was another one that was rumoured to be leaving. He didn't go. John Daddy is still here, and then the others you've mentioned already, Tom Bradshaw and others. And it's just interesting to see who's still here, because clearly other clubs don't see him as worth investment.
It's amazing that clubs in League One and stuff don't see John Daddy Bodvarsson as you know.
He's shown nothing for us, has he? I want to leave the show on a positive note, because I'm interested by Sheyi. Is it Sheyi or is it Sheyi?
Sheyi Ojo.
Sheyi Ojo. Just looking at the Near Post podcast, have published some numbers. This is from his championship season last year at Cardiff. 25 starts, 16 off the bench, which is interesting. So that's quite a lot from the bench. Good numbers at 5 goals, 7 assists, key passes 21, and shots 36, and so it goes on. He does look like a dangerous, attacking-minded player, and I think it's welcome to see that coming inwards. If it wasn't the central creative midfield, I think you called for Aaron and you, Ryan, too.
Well, a 10 would be nice. I mean, Ben Thompson's still around, isn't he?
Ben Thompson's still here. Yeah.
Everyone thought he'd be disappearing, but he's still there.
Yeah. I think it's the lack of. I mean, maybe it's financially imposed. I'm sure anyone with an unlimited budget could be another Pep, couldn't he? But we don't have an unlimited budget. We've got to be realistic. And the club was hit hard by the impact of COVID and no fans. Well, I think we should. There's a school of thought, and I think I slightly belong to this, that we should be grateful to still be in existence, let alone worrying about whether we can sign top drawer players. But it's in the nature of a football fan to always want to be, for sensation to rule. So we're going to see. I mean, it's going to be interesting few weeks to come, boys, I think, because if those are players that are available, the one that Aaron's put around there, I mean, there are some big names in there. Will things change from here? I don't know.
Hello.
So this is my voice note for Millwall's transfer window, which I'll tell you what, at first, with this window, right at the beginning, we were looking out on it with signings such as Long, who's a great number 2 goalkeeper, a selection for Bart, George Saville, the return of him, what a signing that was, and Benica Fobe. It really did seem like, for once, we would go in where managers at Millwall have said that we've wanted to go before. We've said we've wanted to sign high calibre and class players, and we did. And it was so early in the window, we also thought, would this be the typical Millwall that, we do the signings early and then nothing happens. But there seemed to be so much talk of players coming in and so much talk of movement and so much talk of players going out to fund other moves. So for Millwall Football Club, this didn't seem like the normal transfer window, but it just petered into nothing. And that window that we were looking out of just had, like a rather thick pair of net curtains or black blind coming down over it, because there wasn't really much else, was there? The club made a big deal about Mitchell, not Billy Mitchell, but the chap who played really well against Arsenal, and they put him on social media everywhere, and he played in the League Cup, and everyone was making a really good point about him, and you had this potential that everyone was banging on about, and he's now gone out on loan. Granted, yes, he may be a bit too young for the first team. Same with the boy who's gone back to Sutton on loan. It was the right move because he may not be ready for the Championship. But the problem is we have at the moment is that there's no one who's keeping these players out, is there? There's no one on actual real top form quality ability that's keeping these players stuck on the bench. Would we give these players a pump? Probably not, but they'd have more chance of playing at the moment than behind Benicophobe if he was getting 20 goals by now, or if he was on course to a 20-goal season. But my issue with this transfer window is we've been letting the potential go, and they've gone out on loan. And also the obvious issue with the right-back scenario. McNamara has been nailed as the number one. Marlon was a very, very steady number two up until recent events. And you could argue that if McNamara was off his game, that Romeo could slot in. We're now in a situation where we have no right-back or no right wing-back at the club due to injury. And that's no one's fault. McNamara getting injured is no one's fault, but we knew he was injured a while back, and we knew Romeo wanted to go for whatever reason he wanted to go. We're not going to get into the politics about it again, but we knew he wanted to go. But the club don't focus on bringing in a right back, and I just find that baffling. And yes, the window's technically was still open for loanees, but I've never been totally convinced with building such a big team of loanees or players who are on loan from other clubs who you probably won't be able to keep, because unless they're like a Malumbi or an Afobe or someone you plan to get in really, really early and really, nurture and get involved, it just seems to me that bringing in loan players after the window shut stinks of panic. And was it finances? I don't know what it was, but if we knew a few weeks back we'd be in a situation we'd have no right back, crikey, O'Reilly, we should have done something about it. Let's just work on getting these players fit. If we need to bring people in on loan, then so be it, although I'm not a fan of it. But out of 10, the start of the window, we was on course for a good solid 8 out of 10 window. We're stuck really with a window that's just one of those old-fashioned ones that's above a bedroom door that's small and you don't really see much light through. So I'll give this window 4 out of 10. Come on, you lines.
Jerry Scalak here on Millwall's transfer business this summer. Interesting and strange is probably my summary from it. Slow, lack of planning, I think. Let's go back to our first couple of signings. Obviously a goalkeeper, which we've not really seen yet, but important that we have some okay quality to back Bart up just in case of any injuries. So that was a positive one. Scott Malone signing permanently, excellent business. He was a star last season and continues to be one of the better performers this year. Great business. And then we bring in George Saville, which I have the feeling that Rowett never really planned that. But then when he became available, and I'm assuming he wanted to come back to Millwall, we signed him because we've just got this plethora of central midfield players in a side which has tried to play 3, it didn't work, and we've played 2 in the last few games. But we're just overran with central midfield players at the moment. So I'm not sure he necessarily planned to bring in Saville, but you can't turn him down based off his performances last time. So although he's not looked himself just yet, I've still got quite high hopes for him. But that's what makes it a bit strange and interesting. And then it's been pretty clear to see that Romeo's wanted out for a period of time. To not replace him is also quite strange. I'm assuming we're probably going to use McNamara and Billy Mitchell as a backup. But yeah, only one recognised right back in the side, which is, again, if we do have a bit of an injury crisis, I hope we don't see Ryan Leonard there again, because he's hardly going to be bombing up and down that right-hand side. Benicophobe, I think, is a good signing. We haven't seen us use the best of his skills yet. I mean, I think the fact he's already got a couple of goals in a side which has pretty much been performing dreadfully this season is positive, but we need to play to his strengths. And then the lad Ojo, who I don't really know a lot about, he's been around the block on loan. One of those Liverpool loanees that, or you see the big sides like Chelsea do it, just continuously loan people out for like 6-7 seasons. So we did need, a bit more of an attacking flair. However, we still don't have that kind of number 10, which, was what kind of we were talking about, kind of an attacking central player, which I think Rowett mentioned. But then where does the number 10 play in this formation? Well, they don't fit in. Clearly he doesn't fancy Mahoney. So I think you're going to see a front three of Ojo, Afobe and Jed Wallace, which on paper sounds pretty good. But yeah, it's sort of a bit sort of strange imbalance. But I think the quality we've brought in has improved the squad and improved the squad depth, so that's positive. And it's up to the manager to get his tactics right to fulfill the potential of some of these signings. So I'm a bit more positive than perhaps Michael is on the signings, but obviously they mean nothing if you can't get them to click with our formation, which is a whole another voice note, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, I think I'll give our signings a 7 out of 10.
Achtung, Millwall.
We need to, because we need to start getting results, because if you're in the bottom three, then the thing acquires its own logic.
Yeah,
I'll tell you something. You look at the fixtures after West Brom,
it's a good run.
That's a run where this is where points need to be picked up. Swansea away, Coventry at home. Obviously, Leicester in the cup is a one-off.
Is a one-off, yeah.
Forest away, Bristol City home, Barnsley away, Luton at home. Up until
Sheffield United or Stoke, isn't it?
So, mate?
Up until Sheffield United or Stoke, isn't it? I can't remember who comes
Sheffield
first.
United start. I mean, I'm looking up until around the next international break. There's 5 or 6 games there where you should be beating Swansea, should be beating Bristol City. Absolutely, should be beating them.
Yeah.
Forest,
there's
crucial month ahead.
I don't want to call them 6-pointers because that's not what we're looking at. We're trying to be.
Yeah, it was a very odd one. I think Blackpool, that everyone was trying to kind of flirting around the word 6-pointer already. I mean, it wasn't, but it's never a great sign when that comes that early on. It is a big period ahead. I think the system needs to change. I don't know what you think, Aaron or Nick. I think
I'm shitting myself that you're going to bring in Sheyi Ojo and he's going to end up playing as a wing back.
Yeah, that is.
I'm very worried about that.
Potential concern.
I mean, the system, I mean, anything that produces more excitement in the stands. I mean, we came into this season with. I think I fell for it. I'm a sucker, listeners. I'm a sucker for the optimism, and I think we were talking about top 6 and top 10, and at the moment it's hard to see that given how we started the season. And if we, if Jed gets injured, or if for any reason he's not available to us, then we are really bereft, because I can't see much else. If Conor Mahoney's not going to come in, and he's not really ever had a run, and he's not ever really played to his potential, then it's hard to see what else we've got beyond bread and gruel. So a crucial couple of months ahead. We will see, boys. I'm really hoping that there's more in the Millwall story for the season. I just want to close this. I mean, this is a quick show, listeners, a quick reaction show to yesterday's transfer window. I just want to close by I know he's become unpopular, but we've lost a good player in Marlon Romeo, and I'm just looking at his record: 204 appearances, chap, 17 off the bench, 4 goals in those 200 odd appearances, and a member of a side that got promoted via the playoffs in 2017. Some fantastic cup runs, which included him, and I just think it was a sad way for it all to finish, because he's one of our better players in recent years. So I'm probably going to generate a whole load of Twitter storm there, but I just want to say thank you, Marlon Romeo, for everything you've done, because despite it all, he's one of our better players in recent times.
I really hope you back that whole section with a bit of soul to soul.
Soul to soul, yeah. And I mean, again, just to come back at, I think Ryan, you said earlier in the show how he was never really loved at the Den. I disagree with that. I remember going up to Rotherham, and I can't remember what season this was, when just shortly after Marlon had come into the game, and on the train, I got my picture with him, was Jazzy B, and I took my picture with Jazzy B because that's from Marlon's dad. And there was a huge amount of good vibe in this one carriage that took us on a rattler from Sheffield down to the wastelands of Rotherham, and he was being, a lot of praise was being heaped on Marlon Romeo. So he may not go down in history as one of the best ever, but he's certainly a good player for Millwall, and he's gone down the M3, the A3 now to Portsmouth. So there we are. Thank you, Marlon Romeo. That's all I want to say on the matter.
Nice one, Marlon. Cheers, mate.
There we go. Big thank you to Aaron for taking time out of his day, and to Ryan also. I think you're at work, Ryan, aren't you? So probably ought to let you get along.
Well, very much work from home still. So
working from home.
Make of it what you will.
Working from home. Yeah. Good to talk to you, boys, and thank you, dear listener, for tuning in. Do remember to vote for us in the Twitter by posting. I am voting for @AchtungMillwall in the FCA's for best podcast. And,
if anyone wants to donate to our Just Giving page to actually buy a ticket to the event,
the tickets are immensely expensive for what it is.
We're kid, yeah. We got no monies.
We'll see. That's what I'm going to say. If we're not winning it, I can go into that. But anyway, we'll wait and see how it goes. Big thank you, dear listeners. Support the Lions Food Hub, and we'll be back after the international break. Until then, from Aaron and Ryan and yours truly, it's Arriverderci Millwall. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to AchtungMillwall. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a cheeky little review. Arriverderci Millwall. Till next time.
Who do you want to watch?